one of my big role models is Fred Hampton from the Chicago Black Panther Party. He brought together a bunch of Black activists, white activists, Native American activists, Hispanic activists, and he brought all of their communities together to lead on the social issues in their community. And that actually created free school meals in Chicago. In my French class, there was a point where there was 40 children in one class with one teacher. That's illegal. True education is something that actually spurs action rather than inaction.
Greetings and salutations. I'm your host, Alicia Mullings, and this is the Sense Only podcast. Today, we're inviting you to reflect on something deeper that we actually often take for granted: the way we think, the way we believe, and the way we become aware. My amazing guest today is somebody who has demonstrated the courage to ask questions. My guest today is a writer, educator, and speaker, and he's an amazing, wonderful person, Mr. Gabriel Dedji. Welcome.
Hello, thank you.
I'm going to request that you share with us some wonderful, positive things about you.
Yeah. And thank you just even for giving me the opportunity to be here. I know this is going to be a great conversation already. So yeah, as you said, I'm Gabriel. I'm a writer, so at the age of 17, I published a book, which is here. That was in 2019. And the book, The Escape, is a magic realism novel about a young man who goes through certain social issues, certain difficulties in his world, and he has a mystical mentor who helps to take him out of that. And that was a reflection at the time for me on the importance of mentorship, the importance of young people having people to shepherd them. The importance of young people having people there to shepherd them towards a better life, towards better opportunities. That gave me a lot of opportunities in the creative world, that book. So one, to advocate for other young people through different workshops, well-being activities that I used to do in schools, as well as public talks. But then it also gave me the opportunity to run my own education program. So I was commissioned by Royal Museums Greenwich to run something called the Optimism Sessions from 2024. And what that is a creative well-being workshop that helps young people to live conscientiously through object-based learning. So what we do is we'll show them paintings and historical artifacts that they would never get access to anywhere else. Then we use these artifacts to help them build life skills and to help them see the world more clearly. So yeah, that's a bit of what I do. I also do music. I run my own event series called Less Talking, which like mixes arts and culture and a few things. So yeah, a few things I do.
Amazing. See, I knew there was a reason why we aligned, literally. And it's great that you just mentioned in terms of you specialising with things. Did you like actual things? Objects, because I'm literally reading a book at the moment that's doing the separation between things and I guess the digital world.
Right.
Because
really interesting.
Yeah, because it's literally like things, as in physical objects, are becoming less important to information. Absolutely. Whereas there would be no information if there was no things. If there was no things.
Absolutely. That's really interesting. That's something I would love to read that book even after.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend that. But I'm literally going to do an episode on that book. So yes, that's definitely in the pipeline. So I commend you for that, because that is amazing, and it also shows how we're aligned. And also music.
Yes.
If anyone knows, music is like my passion. My degrees in music and all the rest of it. I have a sincere and deep love for the power that is music.
Yes.
And we will get into that as well. Okie dokie. You've spoken about education as a tool for awakening rather than instruction. What does true education look like for you?
That's interesting. You know, just as you asked that question, it reminds me that from when I was a child, this is something that I was really interested in. One of the first essays I wrote at 10 was about the power of education. And I remember taking quotes from Nelson Mandela to explore this. But to answer simply, true education is something that actually spurs action rather than inaction, I would say. And when we think about action, that can be just really rudimentary things, such as, a good maths education would teach you how to be able to do your taxes, how to be able to navigate the basic functions of life, etc. But then a political education would also teach you how to advocate for yourself and how to make the world a better place. So with the optimism sessions, that is the same approach we use, and we also tailor our educational programs to the young people that we're engaging with. So for the first iteration of the optimism sessions, it was 18 to 24-year-olds from South London, and we were just teach them creative well-being skills. It was something that was informally recommended by the NHS in the local area as well. And so for any young person that's going through any emotional troubles, that might have issues with their mental health, they would come to this workshop series and learn how to regulate their emotions, learn how to feel calm, learn how to use their critical awareness, so that when they are in difficult situations in the world, they are able to know, this isn't right, this is right. I'm going to think of how I can navigate this strategically. For the second iteration of the optimism sessions, we worked with some youth offenders, and I focused the curriculum on employability skills to help them to move out this difficult period of their life, so that they're able to live a more fulfilled life, be able to provide for themselves in future, and be fully realized adults, I would say. And so both of these approaches, they are driven by a desire to help people to be active
and apply, basically.
Yes.
Because how it stands, it's all a bit theoretical.
Exactly.
And it seems like there's no bridge in terms of going from theory to actually, as you just say, applying it to your life. Yes. And the age-old, argument is the curriculum is so outdated. It was created after World War II.
Yeah. So this is a really interesting thing. I've been interested in education for years, as I already mentioned, but I had a specific moment of becoming more interested during the pandemic, and I was reading about the work of Dominic Cummings, who was Boris Johnson's special advisor, but who was also an advisor who did major reforms to the education system when I was doing my GCSEs. And there was a really interesting moment where he changed the curriculum so that people would have to understand the logic of what they were learning, more so than just memorizing. And I think he's a very controversial figure. I'm not a fan of everything he does, but that was an interesting move. And I think that's the type of thing that we need for our young people to have, and that's how we move things away from theory into practice. I also think there is some onus on teachers to personalize the work. A lot of young people will tell you that their favorite teachers ever were teachers that made the work real to them. So there's a difference between reading Shakespeare and just thinking, what's this old English? But then reading Shakespeare and thinking, oh, this is a very dramatic text about love, about violence, and it actually relates to some things that are going on in our emotional life today. And so being able to, make these things real to us, I think that's really important. So there's a balance of responsibility on the curriculum, but also the educators as well.
What do you feel could be done, because I completely agree with you, in terms of assisting the educators?
In terms of it, then that's funding. That's the key thing. Well, people say funding, and I want to clarify about saying funding for infrastructure and funding for the right types of infrastructure more than anything. So with schools, it's not just about throwing money at the problem, but understanding that yes, we do need to employ more teachers so that the teachers that are working in schools aren't overworked. And when they are teaching, they're able to do their job to the best of their ability. It also means building more classrooms, that you're not fitting too many kids into one class, because that's something that happened when I was at school. In my French class, there was a point where there was 40 children in one class with one teacher. That's illegal. That shouldn't be the case. And my teacher, Mr. Sokol, he was one of the best teachers ever, but that's something that he struggled with. So we need funding for that type of infrastructure, we need to make sure that kids have the best equipment. If you're learning about science and you're doing all these experiments, whatever, but you don't actually have the equipment for your experiments that you're learning about, that's also a massive problem. So funding for that type of infrastructure, but then also I think making sure that teachers are able to be more relaxed, are able to feel more fulfilled in the work that they're doing. I think a lot of teachers being underpaid, not having much resource, they're not going to go into their jobs passionately.
Right. So
So we need to support them in that way also. This is going to open up a bunch of other conversations of how do we fund this.
Right.
There's all types of, I think the system works in such a way that there are people that are able to make so much money in this country without much regulation upon them, whereas there are us, the little man. How much tax do we pay, all the time? And I think that's backwards. It's a very backward system. So the money should be coming from elsewhere because currently it's coming from the wrong places. So tax reform needs to go towards funding infrastructure for these schools. That's a much wider conversation, but it's something to be mindful of as well. I think that's something that helps the educators. But then in terms of like helping in terms of the curriculum, because that's also important, I think we need to think about making a curriculum that actually applies to building leaders for tomorrow.
Right.
And so one thing that Dominic Cummings said, which really just opened my mind and is one thing that inspired that reimagination of the education system for me, is in agrarian society, so that's olden times, if you have a tribal leader and they're making decisions for their people, they know how to hunt, they know how to cook, they know how to build things. And so when they're making decisions about their local infrastructure, they're actually talking about things that they're educated on, that they know how to do. Our leaders nowadays don't understand the problems related to the issues of our world. And so we need to think of what are the key issues of the world that we're living in. How do we equip our young people to be ready for when they are the leaders to manage that wisely? And that also means getting teachers that are equipped in these areas.
As much as I agree with everything you're saying, it feels like we wouldn't be heard. So as much as you could go and present these ideas, which are brilliant, what are the chances of you being listened to and it being actually applied?
Well, you know what's interesting? So during this time, this 2020 period, where I was really interested in education, my focus was, what are the key policy areas that can that people of all sides of the political spectrum would be able to agree on, would be able to move forward? And I did think that education would be one of those areas. And even if you look right now, Keir Starmer is leading quite a right-wing campaign with the Labour Party, is moving very right-wing, and yet education and investment into the education system has still been one of their key concerns, which shows you that this is something that can apply to a broad array of ideologies and a broad array of people across the political spectrum. Where we're going to have a problem is the funding and the infrastructure and these things, because as much as Keir Starmer does say he wants to invest in school, he hasn't spoken too much about wealth reform or tax reform, which is a bigger conversation. I think there's low chances for the way in which the system is built and designed right now, but I'm not hopeless. I think one reason why I'm not hopeless is that people power does exist. And as long as we can mobilize our people, when I say our people, I'm saying normal civilians, people like you and me, to amplify our voices and put pressure on government and other leaders to make that change, it can happen. Currently, we have people like Zach Polanski, who's leading the Green Party, and he's really reformed the way in which the Green Party is communicating, so much so that there's a very high chance they can do quite well at the next election. You have people outside of the political system, like Gary Stevenson, like Jimmy the Giant, who are also mobilizing support amongst people who would typically be your working class white people that would end up being more right-wing. And so as a result, we are seeing people who are mobilizing support and using class solidarity to get people to support these issues such as tax reform, wealth, inequality, etc. I'm not putting all my hope in them at all, but I'm just saying that there's indications of the fact that people are interested in these ideas. Even recently, there's Zara Sultana and Jeremy Corbyn who started their own left-wing party. They're having some difficulties, but the immediate support that was seen for them, again, a great example of the fact that people like these ideas. Normal people are interested in them. What we're seeing in the media isn't that. We're seeing more support for the Nigel Farages, etc., and the Tommy Robinsons, which is a big issue, which is, something that we should be very conscious about. But even with those people, if you actually listen to the concerns of people who go on marches like the Tommy Robinson march, what they're actually upset about is the same thing that people like me and you who are black are upset about, which is that we're not able to provide for ourselves, we're not able to afford houses, we're not able to afford these things. And so what we really need to do is just push class solidarity above everything else. And that allows us to communicate effectively on a broad array of issues. Something that I'll say, which is even controversial, is that I think people need to actually start being a bit more selfish in the way they view politics. But the reason I say that is, if you look at the way our country is built, the majority of our country is earning 30,000, around that or below. And with that being the truth, and with that being the case, and with that salary being something that a lot of people are struggling to survive on, it would make sense for all of us to vote for policies that support needs of people that are on salaries as such, or maybe slightly above, maybe slightly below. So I would expect people earning that kind of money to vote for an NHS, vote for better investment into schools, vote for a better welfare state. But instead, people that would actually benefit from a better welfare state, benefit from better investment into the NHS, are supporting people who are championing stripping the NHS and championing the lessening of our welfare state. And so I think people need to stop voting for ideas that they believe in, stop voting for future versions of themselves, future wealthy versions that they aspire to, and vote based on their current predicament. If more people did that in this country, we would actually be much better off. And if more people said, I want something that appeals to my conditions right now, we would actually have a government that appeals to more leftist or more welfare-based ideas, which I think is really important.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, it's how do, so basically government's not presenting that as a, what am I trying to say, accessible?
Yeah. So that again, that is by design. It's a lot of our politicians nowadays. You can go online and see who's donating to our MPs. You can see that their opinions are bought for. MPs are supposed to represent their constituencies. They don't anymore. They represent the billionaires that are giving them money to represent their policies. And so, governments aren't presenting these options. But what I will also say is that real change is always grassroots led. Is always people autonomously bringing their power together and making a change. I mentioned class solidarity earlier. One of my big role models is Fred Hampton from the Chicago Black Panther Party. He brought together a bunch of black activists, white activists, Native American activists, Hispanic activists, and he brought all of their communities together to lead on the social issues in their community, and that actually created free school meals in Chicago. And so that's the type of change that we want to see. And it's not just in America. The British, we had our Black Panther Party, and that actually inspired the Notting Hill riots, which, got a lot of black people in places like Northwest London, a lot of the cultural infrastructure that they have to this day. So I think real change is grassroots led, and I think that's also why that critical awareness that I teach my kids is so important. And it's just that ability to, read a politician's manifesto, and say, this doesn't align with me, this is bad, this aligns with me, this is good. And being able to differentiate between what helps you and what doesn't. Every single election, politicians will give us manifestos. A lot of it might be lies, but a lot of it will be true. It kind of doesn't matter whether it's true or not, because people don't read and people don't know what they're reading. And so it's the importance of people being able to just sit, break down information, see how does this affect my life, and then if none of the politicians' options apply to your life, vocalize that. Don't just vote for someone and say, I'm voting for the lesser of two evils or the best out of my options. Actually, either spoil your ballot or go out and protest the fact that your politicians are not attending to your needs. Why are you paying taxpayers' money to pay this person's salary if they're not advocating for you when that's their job? That's not allowed. That shouldn't be allowed. So it's unfortunate that the system is like that. And I think that's what I mean about, autonomous people power, grassroots movements. I think that's really key.
Many people go through formal education, yet never get to a point of critical awareness. What do you feel prevents people reaching that point, in their mind?
Yeah, the basic answer is class, in my opinion. So a good way that my own experiences elucidate this is, so I went to a state school for secondary school, and I would say I had some critical awareness because I read widely. So reading widely helps, but I wasn't actually formally educated to have critical awareness. Where my actual critical thinking skills came from was when I went to a grammar school for sixth form. And when I went to this grammar school, it's not even the poshest type of school you can go to, but just there were more opportunities to learn different skills that I wouldn't have at my other school. And so we had a special module at sixth form that wasn't a part of the curriculum. You weren't graded on it, but you had to go to it compulsorily every week, and they would teach you different skills. And one period of lessons during that time was critical thinking. They taught you how to break down an argument, how to structure an argument, and also how to spot the structure of someone else's argument in order to break that down effectively. That was really useful for me because when I then went to university, they built on those skills even more because I studied politics and I did a module called How to Think Politically. And just that same thing of being able to spot when someone's kind of lying to you, spot spin, and also to deconstruct the way in which someone has presented the argument towards you. So a good example of this is, a good summary of something that I learned in sixth form is to put forward a premise and to put forward another premise that is that follows from that first premise, and then a conclusion that summarizes all of those things together. So an example of that would be if I said all black people are poor and poverty links to crime, that means that a lot of black people are naturally criminals. Because of the way I've structured that, it sounds intelligent. And if a news anchor says this on TV and presents it as fact, you might then internalize that and you might think, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, well, black people are poor and poverty links to crime, and so black people are criminals. But you actually have to figure out which facts there was the lie, what part of it was wrong, how do I deconstruct that argument? And so even that first part, all black people are poor, are they? Well, there's black people of different classes. You think of these different examples that you might have seen amongst society, and then also even the fact that poverty links to crime. It might do statistically, but does that mean that all people that are poor are inherently bound to become criminals? Not necessarily the case. There are a lot of poor people who don't become criminals. And so now that conclusion of all black people are linked to crime, it sounds ludicrous when you're able to break down the argument properly. Yeah. But it's about understanding what are the different premises at play here, what are the different levels, how to deconstruct that. So I think class is the biggest barrier. In a state school where you have too many kids, you don't have enough resources, you don't have time to give them that extra education of critical thinking, this, that. So it should be incorporated into the education system if we want to make it accessible to everyone. It kind of is. It kind of is, if in the sense that, so the example I always give is when I was doing my GCSEs under this new curriculum that Dominic Cummings had revised, we had these things called required practicals. So these are these scientific experiments that you'll work on for a period of weeks in your science lessons. And then in your exams, you'll be asked questions based on these experiments. And the critical thinking comes from you basically taking conclusions from these experiments that you did and being able to convey analyses based on them. But it didn't work out like that. So in the first year where we did those exams, there was a question where the experiment we did was all about potatoes. But then in the exams, they asked us about carrots. It was exactly the same logic, but they just changed one thing. And a lot of people got that question wrong because they hadn't internalized the logic of the experiment. They just memorized, okay, potatoes do this, this, that, etc. They just memorized a bunch of facts. And so I guess that's where the curriculum now pushes the responsibility onto the teachers to push that logic. And across all subjects, you see this. So even within English, when you're reading a text and you have to break down, what does this mean? What's the effect of this literary device and this literary technique? There are tools for finding critical thinking there. It just depends on, is the teacher actually able to push you to do this effectively? And is the environment even one that's conducive to proper learning? When it isn't, a lot of young people just aren't able to get that critical thinking. They aren't able to engage. I think a lot of young people, and this is a massive problem, are just learnt like paragraph structures. So they learn, okay, so you open up your argument like this and then you say this and you say that and you say that, but they're not actually learning what does any of this mean. So when they go into the exam, it's just kind of fill in the blanks, fill in the blanks. And some of them do well at GCSE level, put them at A level, they struggle. Put them in the real world, they're drowning. And so, yeah, I think critical thinking is, I think that's the barriers to it, is a lot of people do go through formal education and never get it. I think though that you can get it outside. A lot of times when people start working, critical thinking, it comes naturally to them. Even a lot of the people that I would say have the most astute political observations that I've seen are just people that have a lot going on in their professional lives. So my friend who's a business owner, who when Donald Trump put in place his tariff policy is now affected because of import-export. He's now looking at the stock exchange and he's looking at the news in America every day. And now he's thinking, how does this policy affect me? And so some things just happen naturally through experience, which is good. I think young people should have the experience of working and should be pushed into the professional world where they can. But you need a balance. You need the education to come from everywhere, really, ideally.
As we all know, education starts at home. So, off the back of everything you've just said, do you have any ideas for how you how parents would be able to support their children? Because obviously when they're sending their children off to school, and as you've just said, there's clearly a gap there where it's not happening. What can parents do? This is a great question for me, because I had like really strict parents, and I'm really grateful for the fact that I had strict parents. It formed me into the man I am today. So I, for one, from the age of 8, I wasn't allowed to watch TV during the week at all. From the age of 8, I wasn't allowed to watch TV during the week. And, you know, when I come home from school, it's either homework or it's try to use your creativity to build your own leisure. And that second aspect, that's what made me the writer I am today, because sometimes I come home from school, I'm bored, okay, get a blank piece of paper, write a story. What can your imagination do for you? And then there's also, just from that, my imagination is being nurtured, is running amok. And that really helped me, even through play, to develop more critical thinking skills, because I would just read and then use that thing that I've read to now inspire my casual life. And so I might read a story about a young person who's going through difficulties, and I'll then think, how do these difficulties relate to my own life? And so
if I was to kind of universalize this into advice that I would give to people, is take away any entertainment that pushes your child towards passive engagement with the world. And so TV is something that spurs passive engagement. If you're with kids and you see them next to a TV, you see how their behavior changes immediately. They might be crying, they might be talking, they might be active, they're showing their emotion, but as soon as you put the TV in front of them, the emotion switches off and they're like a zombie staring at that. If you put that in front of a kid for their whole childhood, that critical awareness is gone. Same with the iPad, same with the phone. So take that stuff away from them just for prolonged periods of time and allow them to engage with the world. I know it's difficult because a lot of parents, you know, if you're from a single parent household, if you know you're struggling because you're working and all these types of things, you do sometimes need the iPad there to pacify them, to preoccupy them whilst you're busy. So I understand the difficulty, but if you can actually spend time with your child and just talk to them on a human level, please do that. 100%. If your child's old enough to be left to their own devices to just do things by themselves, let them do that, and not with a TV, not with an iPad. I think that's really important. The next thing is actually push your child to read, actually push your child to engage with things, talk to your child. You know, often I'll just go out shopping with my mum, I'd go out to the market with my mum, and as I'm doing these things, my mum would be talking to me about what she's doing and pushing me to kind of relate to it. So even my mum, like really small things, my mum taught me how to know whether okra was right to buy or not. It's really small and it's really simple. But then even me doing that, it actually meant that whenever I'm shopping, I'm now looking at the way she's flicked the end of the okra and I'm thinking, okay, that was right, that wasn't right, that was... And that is my critical thinking being alert as a child. And as I grow older, that's, you know, blossomed into something much bigger, into my creative writing, into my educational career. And I think that if we all just have that, that would be beautiful. That would be really important. There's an activity as well that my mum used to do with me where, this was crazy, I didn't like it at all when I was a child, but I think it's helped. Whenever I was reading a book for leisure, she would take that book, she would sit me down, and so I would be facing away from her. She would read me the book that I had for my own leisure, and then she would make me transcribe everything I was hearing down paper, word for word.
Oh, wow.
And if I got, and this is crazy, right? If I got any of the punctuation wrong, I'd have to start again.
Wow.
And even that is like, okay, so now every time I hear something, I can actually think, okay, what does this look like on a page? Where's the intonation? Where is, you know, the punctuation, but also understanding what's the meaning of all these different types of things. But it helps my comprehension skills. And so all these different types of things, like my parents led me through an active childhood that resulted in my critical awareness. And I think we need that for all children. I think that's important.
Amazing. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Hats off to your parents.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm really grateful for them. Like to this day, I think I've been blessed with the best parents ever.
Seriously? I'm curious to know where your mum got some of her ideas from.
So what's interesting, my mum is a teacher. And my mum's parents were also head teachers of their own school.
Makes sense. Okay. It's all clear now.
So it's like, yeah, I had a very disciplinarian upbringing. And also my dad was also an educator. He was a professor as well. And so he's a professor and a preacher, and his dad was a preacher. I think his granddad was a preacher as well. So it's like, I have a very educational, spiritual, religious upbringing, and all of that spurs together towards like my critical awareness. If I was to even go on a tangent on this, it's like a lot of people even struggle like faith-wise when they grow up. When they grow up in religious households, they struggle faith-wise because they grow up just absorbing all this information about religion. But then when it's time to actually know what you stand for yourself, they have no clue because they've just, you know, just passively absorbed all this information. Whereas with my dad, being an academic, he wasn't someone that had his own passive engagement with religion. He was someone that critically engaged with the colonial history of Christianity, with all of these things. And so his Christianity is not something that's blind, it's something that's very active, very alive. And through reading the stuff that he used to teach his students and through reading his own studies, I was able to have an active engagement with my Christianity as well. So even on a spiritual side, I don't think I ever had like a passive relationship with faith in the same way that I didn't have a passive relationship with politics or literature and all these things. And so in every aspect, I would say I had a critical upbringing, which is really good.
That's amazing. And I think I've got a different version of how my critical thinking has been, I guess, cultivated and nurtured in terms of my upbringing, because my family is about 1 billion people.
Great.
I always say both of my families are humongous.
Great.
However, it's amazing because, just to tie into that, there wasn't just one religion because there were so many people. So we'd have some people in the family who were Seventh-day Adventists, some were Baptists, some were Pentecostal, some were Rastafarian, and the list goes on. But I personally feel that that was so beautiful for me to be around that and to get such a close insight into different ways of thinking, to get to a point where, lack of a better word, nothing was forced on me. There was not one program being implemented, basically. And so therefore it got me to a point where I'm seeing so many similarities, but at the same time seeing so many differences that then forced me to then find my own relationship with, as people will hear me say on this podcast, the Most High, the Creator, etc., etc. But there's been a journey, and it's nice to know that at the end of the journey, it's come down to my. I've critically analysed so many schools of thought, you know, at different times in my life, that it's got to a point where it's not, let's say, religion or not religion, what should I say? Well, religion. It's more of, I always say, a relationship.
Absolutely.
It's not me following any human or how a person does things, or, you know, there's nobody on this earth who has the end say over me. And that's not me saying anything against other people who subscribe to whatever they subscribe to and they're living their life how they're living it. However, it's allowed me to have a broader view of things, or my mind is opened up, and for me to get into such a deeper relationship with my Creator, that I'm not following rituals or what somebody else is saying. I've found it within myself where I'm like, I find that is my truth. That's helped me to be able to operate and step out into the world how I step out today. But it also empowers me to a point where I can sit in a room with people of different faiths, different religions, different beliefs and whatever, and I can reason with everyone. And everybody feels respected, and everybody feels heard, and I'm not of any threat to anyone.
I think what's interesting and what I love about your experience is that actually opens up another way in which I think young people can gain critical awareness, which is an extended family. I think that I grew up within a nuclear family context, which is fine for me because, you know, I had these parents that pushed me to get knowledge from everywhere. However, I think that having an extended family, from what I've seen, always helps young people, because you have so many different characters, so many different beliefs, so many different cultures within that family, and that really spurs you to broaden your perspectives, but also to know what your values are within that broader perspective. And so the closest thing I had to an extended family context was my church. And despite the fact that we're all part of the same denomination, same church, we still all had different cultures within that church, different traditions. And so me knowing what my Beninese West African heritage was within this multi-diasporic community was very important to me, knowing who I was as an individual. And so I think that's the same with what you described as well, that it's really important to know what you believe at the end of the day and not get swept up by other people's schools of thought. Having an extended family allows you to reason with others in such a way that you differentiate yourself from them, but also situate yourself within their wider context.
Right.
And it also helps us to see our individual perspectives as part of the human family, as part of just the grand narrative that the human race encompasses. I think that is also reflective of an idea called popular modernism. So my favorite philosopher ever is a guy called Mark Fisher. And he writes about this idea of popular modernism, where the mainstream of popular culture is able to encompass a variety of different cultural narratives and perspectives. And so for him, he learned about philosophy through different magazines that he used to read when he was younger. And so for some other people, it might be them learning about jazz music through their local radio station, whatever. And culture does play a part in pushing forward this popular modernism. And popular modernism proliferates critical thinking, because the more different elements of art and culture and different ideas you're able to engage with, the more you're able to figure out how to reason with them and how to approach the world differently. One big problem that we have right now is that all culture is kind of being subsumed by technology. And so, you know, everything is TikTokified, everything is Instagramified or whatever. And so we might have different voices, but all the voices are kind of saying the same thing at the same time, in the same way. It's like with music, right? There might be different genres of music, but if all these artists are still just trying to make a TikTok hit, you're still having the same approach and same mentality. Whereas when a lot of us were younger, so pirate radios were kind of a bit before my time, but you know, even you're nodding now, like pirate radio stations spurred like reggae, they spurred grime, they spurred gospel, they spurred everything. And for people who are listening to that, so many ideas were now going through their head. And even there's like even certain social movements within the Midlands, for example, are pushed forward by black pirate radios. And that's amazing. Pirate radio being used as a tool to awaken the minds of the masses. So what methods of culture are we using to open the minds of the masses? Because we can think of, you know, the cultural landscape as the way in which our family, our family as a human race, is able to engage with each other. And, you know, this popular modernism is the bringing together of our extended family. But then when you don't have that popular modernism, you just have all these kind of nuclear individuals living on their own and not really being able to engage with the world critically, engage with the world properly. So yeah, I think popular modernism is the way to go, but we've kind of lost sight of that at the moment.
How do we get back there? How do we bring the people in?
Yeah, I think we are seeing some movements. I think we need people to move completely away from technology.
I agree.
Just even if that's temporarily. I think that naturally, through us moving so far towards technology, there have just been some people who have been left behind, some people who've been capitalizing on the desire for in-person connections. And so we have seen some movements. So even within music, I will mention Brighter Days Family. So that's like a young music collective that are championing kind of funky house, broken beat music, and they do a lot of in-person events that inspire people to move in person together. I think that's amazing because, you know, teaching people just once again to be connected to their bodies, to actually understand, okay, this music makes me want to dance in this way and I'll move, rather than, oh, there's people here, let me bring my phone out and record everyone.
Don't get me started.
Because that's a different conversation.
It's a different conversation. I got put on a guest list last week and just ended up at a dance that I would not voluntarily take myself to. A story for other days. But I say the point I'm about to make is, even though you're in a traditional dance, there was, and I say it was women, it wasn't any men, there was women with selfie stand, like selfie stand, and then putting their phone on and actually being at the dance and just streaming it live. You're at the dance.
That doesn't make sense.
My brain. I was like, what is happening
That's
here?
surveillance culture that is just even paralyzing us. We're not actually able to enjoy ourselves. We're just, you know,
just be present.
Exactly.
And one of the beautiful things about going outside is, for the people that never came, You missed out.
Exactly.
How about
exactly.
that? So the next time you might take yourself there. Why have the people sitting in their house enjoying what's happening in that place? How about we keep it exclusive?
Exactly.
If you really wanted to know what was happening in there, you better come out your house and reach.
I agree. I agree. And even like that even ties back in, because a good way to summarize the way in which we can bring that popular modernism back is embracing the fleeting nature of the human existence. If we embrace the fact that this whole party that you're at today, it might inconvenience a lot of people to put it on, but is a beautiful moment that will disappear, but we will remember it, and it will be beautiful in the moment. Let's bring that back. Let's bring back physical media, whether that be newspaper, whether that be vinyl. And when I say vinyl, I think that's even a different conversation, because some people buy vinyls now just to have on their wall and just to have as a nice set piece.
Actually play the vinyl.
Actually play it, you know, actually use these things, engage with it. Because even vinyl is a great example. A lot of my writing was inspired by a vinyl I bought when I was, my brother bought for me actually when I was a teenager, called We Out Here. So a record label called Brownswood put this compilation album together, and it was released around 2017, which was obviously the year of the Windrush scandal and Grenfell. And it was a year after Brexit as well. And a beautiful writer named Tej Adeleye wrote a piece all about the way in which all these different elements had impacted the jazz scene in London at the time. And that opened my mind to the way in which art can be used to communicate ideas. If I hadn't engaged with that vinyl, if my brother hadn't bought me that physical piece of media, I would have just consumed that piece of music passively on Spotify. And so, you know, just bring back those physical elements. Let's come back to real life for a bit.
100%.
You know? And I think that helps us to bring that popular modernism back.
Just to add on to, because as I said, my passion is music. Just the simple thing, as you've just said, pointing out the vinyl. One of the things that I used to enjoy was the sleeve that a vinyl, a CD used to come in, and you could read about what the artist was thinking, what were they feeling, who were they dedicating their work to, the lyrics to it. But to actually take that time to pause and just, as I get, even though you're listening to music, but get quiet within yourself and appreciate somebody else's art. Remember, music is somebody else's art. That's, I pray that it's coming from a heart space. But traditionally it did. And once upon a time, music actually had a lot of education in it.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the most beautiful things about music. And music is universal. And clearly I need to do an episode on music.
No, but this
the power of music that's not being, well, I feel like it's being used for not as good these days, unfortunately. And I feel like musicians actually really need to remember how powerful they are and how powerful their art is, and to use it for good. But please go on before I go down a whole rabbit hole in terms of music and the music industry.
I completely agree with you. I think that, as I mentioned, this TikTok landscape, which doesn't just affect people that are making music for TikTok, but people outside of that landscape too. I think that, you know, it kind of suffocates the ability for music to be a force for change. The vinyl sleeve is important. What I also think is important is like even analog recording, like recording in real life. Right now, I'm not going to get into too much detail, but if you listen to music, you can hear that, you know, the vocals when people are singing, it's so compressed, there's so much going on, it's so processed that you can't even hear their breathing. You know, when you hear instruments, it's not even real instruments. And as a result, you know, when you used to listen to music, you could actually see, oh, the drums were there in the room, this was here, the saxophone was here. You could hear that this was recorded in a room. Whereas now, is not recorded anywhere. There's no spatial context to what we're hearing. And as a result, that education, that ability to respect someone else's art, we lose that because you don't have much information of what went into it. We just take the way we feel about it, and music becomes a tool for individualism rather than bringing people together. I also think that streaming services play a role in this, in the sense that, you know, I can now just download any music I want on my phone, listen to it, and just overindulge in it. And that will reinforce the feelings that I want it to do to me. Whereas let's just go back to radio where, you know, radio decides what's on.
Yeah.
And if it's a good radio station, you might get a variety of feelings that you didn't even know were alive within yourself.
Yeah.
That might inspire you to go search more, end up buying a CD or vinyl that you learn more about. And so, yeah, I think there's so much to say about music.
There's so much to say about music, literally. Yeah.
What's your favorite genre of music?
What's the point? I try not to say I have a favourite genre because for me, I just as I say, I appreciate the beauty of music. I appreciate that it's somebody's art. They're sharing something. They're talking to us, and also how certain songs would make me feel, which could be in different genres by different artists. They all play a different. I'd say they all play a different part of my life, and also how I'm feeling on that day, how I might be moved. But just to add to what you were saying earlier in terms of when music was still real music with real instruments and real humans, some music can just really affect me in a different way. Like until this day, Luther Vandross, Superstar. I love that. That song makes me cry. Real tears. That song moves me in a way. I always find myself crying.
Yeah.
I don't know why,
That's interesting.
but I cry and I look. The song is it's so beautiful. I can't listen to it because I just end up in floods of tears.
You know what's interesting? That's so funny. So there's a song this week. I wouldn't say it's brought me close to tears, but it's come quite close.
Right.
There's a song called "Wait a Minute" by Ty, a rapper.
Okay.
He was from Brixton. He died unfortunately. May his soul rest in peace. But it's a broken beat song, so broken beat is my favorite genre. It encompasses like funky house, it encompasses just all types of influences. But the reason that I get so emotional thinking about this song is, so it's a breakup song, but is at that specific moment of a breakup, and I'll explain how this links in a moment, but is at that specific moment in a breakup where you know exactly why this isn't going to work, and you're able to articulate it. And as a result, it kind of feels like you could keep on going because you can maybe work it out, but realistically you can't. And I just think the reason why that song is so beautiful and it gets me so emotional is, one, that moment of being able to articulate things is what we all need in this world.
Yes.
And just being able to say what the problem is.
Yeah.
Like, people often can't do that. People know that, everyone knows that they're unhappy with the way the world is right now.
Yes.
But a lot of people can't actually explain what it is they're unhappy about.
Right.
And so even though this is a breakup song, it actually relates to the way I see the world with critical thinking, with all this stuff. Because it's like, just that moment of being able to articulate, like, no, we're not working. There's something wrong here. And this is why. And actually just breaking that down problem by problem, feature by feature, I just think is a beautiful. I love what he does lyrically in that song. The actual instrumental also adds on to that feeling. And I'm just like, if we could all be as articulate as Ty was in this song, the world would be a better place.
But it's also about the vibrations.
Yeah.
That's why I personally would say I don't have a particular genre that is my favourite, because it's definitely the vibrations of the music. Because as I've said, that song that I just mentioned. But then on another day, one of my most favourite songs is Water by Fela Kuti.
Yeah. Oh.
Fela Kuti, Water.
Yeah.
There's limited lyrics. So I feel like it's one of the most powerful songs ever in life.
It is. One of my top 5.
Literally.
Yeah.
But then on another day, because also in terms of my heritage, I'm going to go through the whole of Bob Marley's catalogue.
Yeah.
But then on another day, I'm deep in my neo soul. I'm like Jill Scott, Erykah Badu, Eric Roberson, the rest of them all day.
Yeah.
And the list goes on. You might even, I think one of the first albums I bought back in the day was literally by Nirvana.
Oh.
Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Yes, what a song.
This is what I'm saying to you. I don't sit in this particular genre. I'm
love
just
that.
like,
Important.
what is
a
powerful song? What is great music? How is it moving me? And as I said, I'm very much a vibration person. So it could be by somebody who doesn't look anything like me.
Yes.
It could be world music. It could be music from wherever, you know? If I resonate, if it moves me in a certain way, that's for me.
I always encourage people to be critically open-minded. What I mean by critically open-minded is open-minded in the way you are, where you just take this diversity of influences and you're able to, welcome them in. But the reason why I say critically is, don't just passively engage with it.
Right.
Think of what this means. How does it affect you, etc.
Yep.
That's how I am with music too. And I'll even give a story which It is a humble brag, but it's something that I love saying. So, you know, with Water No Get Enemy, that's also, as I've said, one of my favorite songs ever. When I was a teenager, I just listened to that over and over and over again. Fela did that song with Egypt 80, which is, you know, a band that he formed in one of his later years. And in his Egypt 80 band, he had a keyboard player called Dele Shasimi, who was born in Hackney, but then went to live in Nigeria.
Okay.
Dele Shasimi is still alive to this day, alive and kicking. And so one day, I was hosting an event. So remember, I used to run events, Less Talking, and Less Talking is an arts and culture series that stimulates moments of togetherness and self-reflection through music and the arts. And so I wanted to throw a concept called Optimism, where I get multi-diasporic dance sounds and spur people to have that conscientious engagement with the world through those sounds. And I was thinking, who would be the perfect headliner to encapsulate the sound for this event? And I just thought, Dele Shasimi would be crazy. If I managed to bag that, that would be insane. And I did manage to.
Amazing, well done.
Thank you. And that was like, I would say, so what's interesting about that night, that concert was actually what birthed the Optimism sessions.
Nice.
And so, like, one feature that I had for that event is, in order to buy tickets, people needed to say, if you had unlimited powers, how would you change the world? And people needed to answer that question in order to be able to see Dele. But then when they get there, you know, Dele is inspiring them to move and to dance and to feel the emotion. And so it's like a bunch of optimistic individuals who have gotten into the space through a conscientious engagement of the problems of their world are now moving together all at the same time, all in tandem with each other. And so, that's kind of to link to what you're saying of, you know, just allowing music to enrapture you, but then also thinking of how you can use that music for good. And that's the way I curate all my events. I think, okay, what's the sound? How can I use that sound to enlighten people? And I think it's really important. As you said, the vibrations are just really impactful and useful to spurring that.
100%. One of the things that I feel like is very important, because at the moment, everyone's promoting AI. And the odd few people will actually say it stands for artificial intelligence. And I'm like, okay, let's repackage that. Fake intelligence.
Yes.
Can we get back to natural intelligence, please?
Yes.
I feel like we just need to, as you said earlier, in terms of just go for a window of maybe a year when we go back to natural intelligence or human intelligence.
Absolutely.
Real life. Outside. And see what the world looks like after that.
Absolutely. I think that's a real problem. And I think a lot of people tell you AI represents hope and a lot of good things.
It's a tool.
It is a tool. And
but it's not life.
Exactly.
Why is it running life?
Exactly. and so my response to what you just said is, I completely agree. And what I think about AI is that we need to make sure that this doesn't accelerate past the need for humans in itself. You know, if we are going to use it as a tool, let's make sure that we're still centering human and human existence in this world rather than artificial intelligence. Because the logic of us having this conversation right now, the logic of me listening to a song that inspires me and inspires me to create great art, that's what we should value.
Yes.
This artificial intelligence, it can't replace our critical awareness, because then what is the point of us living? And it's not only what's the point of us living, we should also think, what are we able to do in the world? Are we able to make a change? Are we able to fix our own problems? Because this AI is not going to do it for us. It's still based on the ideas that we put into it. And we've seen how far we've gone as a human race. So why are we expecting this AI to now exceed where we failed? It might be able to have certain technological competencies, but emotional, critical competencies it doesn't have. And so this is why we need to remember human interaction, human community, 100%. All these things, not let AI take us over. We need to relegate it to a tool and a tool only. I was reading this week an essay from an artist called Aria Dean, and she has a piece called Notes on Black Accelerationism, which is really interesting because it explores the way in which the accelerationism of artificial intelligence and technology is kind of even surpassing the need for Black people specifically. And that's something that we need to think about. If AI is being built on the knowledge of the history that we've built for us. Has the history that precedes us been welcoming to Black people? No, not at all. So why do we think that this AI could even be a tool for us as Black people? Why do we think it's going to be welcoming to us? And we should also remember that it's not an autonomous technology. It's curated and created by man.
Yep.
So
and then we need to look at who was the man that programmed this, who set up the algorithm.
What are the values of these people?
Exactly.
And then also, you know, we could go on and on and on about this. Like,
that's a whole episode.
Yeah, like all the impact that has on the climate, the environment is a big problem. So we need to be mindful of these things when we use them, and we should be mindful to recenter our own powers. And if you are a religious or faith-led person like myself, we should remember to center the values of our Creator, the values of the person that made us. So I think these are things to think about.
And it's for us adults to make sure we reinforce this in the children as well, because they're coming up in this age where these types of things is just their norm. Yeah. And then when we all leave Earth, we're left with them seeing this as norm.
Absolutely. We need to make sure our kids are not having AI friends and and just scrolling through, you know, AI content and AI brain rots, all these things. Like, no, let's take that away from them.
Take them away. We could be here forever.
We could.
But this has been amazing, Gabriel. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
You need to be a friend of this podcast. Seriously, you need to come back. We've got things we need to talk about. Of course. Yeah. This has been amazing. What to say? Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share?
I would say that I challenge everyone who's listening to this today to go and engage with a piece of music, a piece of art, a piece of literature that you haven't engaged with before. Think about the way in which it impacts you. Think about the way it makes you feel. Ask yourself why it makes you feel that way. And then just continue to think, maybe write something in response, create something in response. Just allow yourself to be critically aware. And once you do that, use that skill in your everyday life. Use it in your engagement with politics, with the news, with anything, with your family, with the world around you. I think that's really important to our humanity, to our communities, to our values.
This has been amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gabriel. You'll be back.
Of course, definitely.
You'll be back. Yeah, and thank you to everybody else who's tuned in. This is the Sense Only podcast. Please share this with a minimum of 2 friends who you know would actually really appreciate this type of conversation. And if you're somebody who's really appreciating it, do the usual: follow, subscribe, leave a comment. Let's all talk. You know, the main reason for this podcast is for us to connect. So please do connect with me. Please do connect with Gabriel. We're paying attention, we're listening. Let's talk. Let's join back together and be blessed.